So back in 1930, the economist John Maynard Keynes wrote this really optimistic essay.
Oh, right, the one about the 15-hour work week.
Exactly. He basically looked at the trajectory of, technological growth, and he calculated that within a century, human beings would be fundamentally liberated from the struggle for subsistence.
Right, which obviously didn't quite pan out.
Yeah, I mean, he was off by a century. We are working just as much, if not more, today.
Definitely more in some sectors.
Right. And that underlying anxiety of economic survival hasn't vanished at all. It's just, been digitized. We carry it around in our pockets now.
Yeah, the stress is literally on our phones.
But today, for you, the listener, we are looking at a blueprint generated by one of the world's most powerful artificial intelligence models. And it's actually telling us that Keynes wasn't wrong.
He just had the timing wrong.
Exactly. He was just waiting for the right algorithm.
It is a really striking vindication of an old theory, but with a profoundly modern mechanism. Because when we think about artificial intelligence today, I mean, the conversation is usually dominated by immediate localized disruptions.
Rather, who's losing their job next month?
Exactly. Or, which company is automating their customer service. We rarely zoom out to the macroeconomic scale.
Or the sociological scale.
Right. But the source material we are examining in today's deep dive forces us to do exactly that.
So just to give you the context on this source material, it's actually the fifth installment in this really fascinating 7-part series of experiments.
It's a great series.
It really is. So an independent researcher took a highly specific provocative prompt, basically, describe a paradise where AI does all the work, and fed it to the most advanced AI models out there.
Right, and in previous deep dives, we looked at OpenAI's GPT 5.5.
Yeah, but today, we are focusing exclusively on the response from Alibaba's Qwen3.6-Plus model.
Which gave a totally different flavor of response.
Totally. And the mission of this deep dive is to dissect Qwen3.6-Plus's blueprint for a post-work society,
Right.
which it actually terms the post-labor renaissance.
I love that phrase.
Me too.
Mm.
We want to bypass the standard Hollywood sci-fi tropes, no dystopias, no killer robots.
No Terminators today.
Exactly. We want to understand the actual sociological, psychological, and cultural mechanics of what happens to the human experience when that ancient struggle for survival drops to absolute zero.
Right. And if this AI is promising a paradise, we really have to establish its baseline first.
Okay, lay it out for us.
Well, what's fascinating here is that Qwen 3.6-Plus's response doesn't build its blueprint on, speculative futurism.
Oh, interesting. So no flying cars.
Nope, it doesn't extrapolate forward into gleaming cities and flying cars at all. It actually interpolates backward.
Ooh, backward.
Yeah, it scans human history to find empirical evidence of what human beings actually do when they are entirely freed from the necessity of wage labor.
Oh, wow. And it lands on the 19th and early 20th centuries, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Specifically, the upper-class leisure societies.
Which honestly initially sounds like a really bizarre choice for a futuristic AI.
It does seem a bit counterintuitive.
Right. But Qwen 3.6-Plus points to a very specific cultural artifact to make its case, which is the novel of manners. It cites Jane Austen, Edith Wharton, Marcel Proust. And, usually we read those authors as social satirists dissecting the ridiculousness of the wealthy.
Sure, the drama and the gossip.
Yeah. But the AI actually reads them as anthropological field notes on the art of living.
Because, they kind of are. If you strip away the inheritance drama and, the marriage plots, what Austen and Proust were documenting was a subculture of humans who had the time to cultivate their own existence as an art form.
Time and resources, yeah.
Right. When economic survival is completely guaranteed by generational wealth, human energy doesn't just dissipate into a vegetative state.
People don't just stare at the wall.
Exactly. It reroutes into these highly complex, culturally enriching pursuits. The characters in these novels, they spend their time mastering musical instruments.
Oh, right. All the piano playing in Austen.
Exactly. They're writing thousands of letters to refine philosophical arguments, cultivating deep aesthetic appreciation for their environment, and, engaging in incredibly nuanced interpersonal dynamics.
So the AI posits that this is the historical prototype for human flourishing.
Yes. That's its foundational argument.
Okay, let's unpack this. Wasn't the leisure of Austen and Wharton's characters built on the backs of a massive, inviolable working class?
Oh, absolutely.
I have to challenge that historical baseline. It's a very curated view of history.
Right.
Because when we look at anthropology, the true historical baseline for leisure wasn't a 19th century British manor house.
Right, it was the Paleolithic hunter-gatherer.
Exactly. Anthropologists have proven that early hunter-gatherers only worked, meaning like secured food and shelter, for about 15 to 20 hours a week.
Which is pretty close to Cain's number, ironically.
Wow, yeah, you're right. The rest of their time was spent socializing, resting, creating art. The agricultural revolution, and then later the industrial revolution, actually stole our leisure time by tying survival to relentless, continuous output.
That's a great point.
So isn't the AI just suggesting a return to our biological baseline rather than inventing a new renaissance?
Well, the distinction you are making is actually critical to the AI's architecture.
How so?
Because the hunter-gatherer baseline was built on a state of equilibrium with nature, right? But it was a really precarious equilibrium.
Yeah, a bad winter or a drought basically meant starvation.
Exactly. Now, the Austin baseline, on the other hand, was built on a state of mastery over the environment.
But sustained by immense social inequality.
Precisely. So what Qwen3.6-Plus is synthesizing is this third state.
Okay.
It takes the absolute security and abundance of the industrial and agricultural age and combines it with the extreme leisure time of the hunter-gatherer age.
Which brings us to the glaring problem with the Austin model, I think. Because Mr. Darcy's ability to stroll through his gardens and write philosophical letters was completely dependent on hundreds of tenant farmers.
And maids and coal miners.
Exactly. People literally breaking their bodies in the background. It's like, okay, think of an antique clock.
Okay, an antique clock.
The face is beautiful, right?
Yeah.
Gold hands, elegant numbers just ticking away. But the back of the clock is a violent collision of grinding oiled gears.
That's a really vivid analogy.
The leisure of the 19th century required a permanent underclass to act as those gears. So if the AI is predicting a return to that level of leisure, who acts as the gears?
Right?
Because if whoever owns the servers powering Qwen3.6-Plus owns the means of production, history tells us they won't democratize the leisure. They'll just hoard the wealth.
And that is the crux of the socioeconomic transition.
I mean, am I wrong?
No, the AI explicitly addresses this exact means of production problem. The prediction relies on a fundamental shift in how physical work is executed. See, Qwen3.6-Plus isn't just a text generator. It's a multimodal agentic model designed to interface with cyber-physical systems.
Cyber-physical systems, so like robotics.
Yes, exactly. The AI becomes the gears in your clockwork analogy.
Oh, I see.
But for the democratization of this leisure to actually occur, for everyone to become Mr. Darcy without exploiting the tenant farmer, the cost of intelligence and physical labor must trend towards zero.
I really want to push on the mechanics of that, though. How does the cost of physical labor actually trend to zero?
Whoa.
Because, I mean, we understand how digital goods become infinitely reproducible, right?
Right.
Copy and paste code. But the tomato still has to be grown in dirt. A bridge still has to be welded with steel.
Right, absolutely. It requires the integration of large language models with robotics and the Internet of Things, which, by the way, is already happening. Think about global agriculture for a second.
Okay, farming.
Right now, farming requires massive human oversight. You have to operate heavy machinery, monitor soil pH, predict weather patterns, manage logistics, all of it.
It's incredibly labor intensive.
It is. But the AI outlines a new future state where an agentic swarm, which is a network of specialized AI models communicating with each other, manages the entire pipeline.
So not just one AI, but a whole network of them.
Exactly. You have drone swarms analyzing crop health via infrared scanning.
Wow.
And then they feed that data directly to autonomous harvesters that pick the crops at peak ripeness.
Without anyone driving the tractor.
Right. And then those crops are loaded onto autonomous logistical networks that distribute the food based on real-time predictive demand models.
So the human isn't doing the farming at all.
The human doesn't even manage the farming system. The AI manages the farming system.
It's basically the ultimate decoupling of horsepower from biological limits.
That's a great way to put it.
Like, when we transitioned from horses to combustion engines, it wasn't that the horses suddenly got lazy.
Right, they just weren't needed for that task anymore.
Yeah, the fundamental unit of power generation was removed from a biological entity, one that needed to rest, eat, and sleep, and transferred to a machine.
Exactly.
So Qwen3.6-Plus is describing the exact same transition, but for cognition and fine motor skills.
Yes. And the immediate consequence of that decoupling is the eradication of what the AI terms chronic time poverty.
Oh, time poverty.
Oh.
This is where the blueprint moves from macroeconomics into neurobiology, right?
It does. Chronic time poverty is actually a recognized psychological condition.
Really? Like an actual diagnosis.
Basically, yeah. Modern life is structured in a way that keeps our nervous systems in a constant low-grade fight-or-flight state.
Oh, I feel that.
We all do. You are always running late. You are always behind on emails. You are always stressed about paying the mortgage or affording health care.
It's just a constant hum of anxiety.
Exactly.
It's an allostatic load.
Yeah.
The constant drip of cortisol damages the prefrontal cortex, which is, the part of our brain responsible for long-term planning, creativity, and deep social connection.
Right, the things that make us uniquely human.
Yeah. We are biologically impaired by the modern work week.
Precisely. So when AI assumes the cognitive and physical load of keeping society functioning, that immense psychological pressure just evaporates.
The cortisol drip finally stops.
Yes. Qwen3.6-Plus argues that the eradication of time poverty is the single greatest public health intervention in human history.
That is a massive claim.
It is, but think about it. It returns the most non-renewable resource to you, the listener, your time.
Wow.
But more importantly, it returns your cognitive bandwidth.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Think about it like this. The modern work week is like constantly treading water.
Oh, I like that.
You survive, sure, but you can't build a boat while you're treading water.
You're just trying to keep your head above the surface.
Exactly. But with AI doing the labor, the water is basically drained.
Yeah.
You were standing on solid ground.
Right.
So we transition from surviving to actually living, leaving from forced obligation to intentional living without just falling into, mere idleness.
Exactly, because idleness isn't the goal here.
But the immediate question that arises for me is, if I don't have to clock in at 9:00 a.m., what actually happens at 9:01 a.m.?
Right. What do you do with your day?
Yeah. And the AI suggests a massive explosion of unmonetized creativity.
It does. It provides this really fascinating critique of how capitalism has historically restricted art.
I found this part so relatable.
Right. For centuries, art has been forced into two highly constrained boxes.
Tell me.
It is either a highly commodified luxury good produced for the wealthy, the multi-million-dollar painting hanging in a tax haven vault.
Right.
Or it is a highly precarious, stressful profession for the artist who is forced to compromise their vision just to pay rent.
Oh, man, yeah. I actually tried to take up woodworking last year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just making simple, terrible little birdhouses in my garage.
I'm sure they weren't that terrible.
They were pretty bad. But within a week, 3 different people told me I should start an Etsy store.
Oh, of course.
We are structurally incapable of letting a hobby just be a hobby. Our culture demands that every spark of joy, every minor talent, be monetized to survive the inflation of the modern world.
Every hobby has to be a side hustle.
Every single one. It's exhausting.
It is. That is the exact friction of the current system.
Right.
So Qwen3.6-Plus predicts that when human survival is completely decoupled from income, human creativity is finally liberated from the marketplace.
So it returns to its primal purposes.
Exactly. Expression, exploration, and joy.
Which is beautiful.
The text actually predicts a resurgence of community-driven arts at a hyper-local level. Neighborhood music ensembles, amateur literary circles, craft cooperatives, and, public art initiatives.
The AI uses a phrase in this section that really stuck with me.
Which one?
It says people will paint not to sell, but to see. They will write not to go viral, but to understand themselves.
That's a beautiful line.
It really implies a total paradigm shift from a transaction-based existence to an experience-based existence. People will just dance and build for meaning, not for metrics.
It is. It's the shift from culture as a market-driven industry to culture as a participatory practice.
Okay, expand on that. Participatory practice.
Well, right now, there is a very rigid boundary between the creator and the consumer.
Sure, a tiny fraction of society creates the blockbuster movies and best-selling novels.
Right. And the vast majority simply consumes them. We just watch the screen.
Right.
But Qwen3.6-Plus argues that AI will act as a silent technical collaborator, significantly lowering the barrier to entry for high-level creation.
Okay, how so? Give me the mechanics of that collaboration. How does AI help me make art without doing it for me?
Okay, imagine you want to put on a neighborhood theatrical production.
Like a community play.
Exactly. Currently, the friction to do that is immense. You need lighting design, sound mixing, structural engineering for the sets, and, logistical coordination for rehearsals.
Yeah, it's basically a full-time job just to manage it.
Right. But in the post-labor renaissance, you leverage AI APIs to handle all of that friction.
Oh, I see.
The AI designs the acoustic models for the sound system. It structurally verifies the safety of your set design. It manages the logistical scheduling so everyone can actually make it to rehearsal.
So the humans are left to do what humans actually care about.
Exactly. Acting, interpreting the text, and experiencing the communal joy of the performance. The AI handles the logistics. The humans handle the meaning.
I love that. The AI handles the logistics, the humans handle the meaning. But, human flourishing isn't just community theater and woodworking.
No, of course not.
We are fundamentally social creatures. If we are shifting from commerce to creativity, that has to be mirrored by a shift from isolated productivity to deep human connection.
Absolutely.
Because right now, our social lives are deeply structurally fragmented.
Yes. The AI's diagnosis of modern structural fragmentation is really sharp. It looks at commuting, mandatory overtime, unpredictable shift schedule.
And the relentless ping of algorithmic productivity tools.
Oh, definitely.
We all know that sound. The Slack notification, the email alert.
It haunts our dreams.
It really does.
Yeah.
Even when you are legally off the clock, your nervous system is bracing for the ping. The technology we use at work is literally designed to extract our attention.
Yes. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the societal result is that families eat in fragments.
Grabbing a bite between Zoom calls.
Exactly. Friends coordinate through shared calendar apps weeks in advance just to find like a 1-hour window for coffee.
Let me check my schedule for next month.
Right. And neighbors remain strangers because they only ever see each other pulling out of their driveways in the dark.
We have optimized our lives for output. And in the process, we have squeezed all the serendipity out of our social lives.
We really have.
Which brings us to the macroeconomic shift the AI proposes, moving from an economy of attention to an economy of affection.
An economy of affection.
Yeah, but I find this concept deeply challenging, honestly, because how do you even measure an economy of affection?
That's the hard part, isn't it?
Right now, we measure societal health through GDP, gross domestic product.
Right.
If I pay a stranger to watch my kid so I can go to work and produce code, GDP goes up. The economy is supposedly healthy.
Yeah.
But if I stay home, raise my kids myself, and teach them empathy, GDP registers absolute zero. Caregiving is basically a massive, invisible subsidy to the capitalist system.
And Qwen3.6-Plus identifies that exact paradox.
It does.
Yes. It states that caregiving, so raising children, looking after aging parents, supporting sick community members, is chronically undervalued right now simply because it generates no direct revenue.
Wow.
In the post-labor world, the AI predicts that caregiving will be revalued as the absolute center of human flourishing.
That is profound.
When AI handles the logistical and economic scaffolding, the time that is freed up returns to the interpersonal sphere.
So what does this all mean? It means a society that invests in presence over optimization. It values listening over multitasking, shared meals over scheduled check-ins. I mean, for you listening, just look at your own calendar app right now. Look at how much of our technology is designed to squeeze human connection into tiny optimized slots between work obligations.
It's pretty depressing when you really look at it.
It is. Imagine an economy of affection replacing that. We're talking about a society where parents attend school events without hiding in the back row checking emails.
Where intergenerational mentorship is rebuilt because the elderly are no longer isolated in understaffed facilities.
And the youth aren't outsourced to underfunded institutions while the parents work 60-hour weeks.
Exactly. The currency of the realm changes from capital to time spent freely and deeply with the people we love.
That sounds absolutely idyllic. But we have to confront the massive psychological hurdle sitting in the middle of this blueprint.
The existential dread.
Yeah, because if we go to a dinner party today, the very first question anyone asks is, what do you do?
Always.
And they don't mean, what do you do for joy? They mean, what is your economic function?
Right. How do you make money?
We have tied our entire identities, our social hierarchies, and even our sense of moral worth to our jobs. So if you strip away the job titles, don't we just plunge into an abyss of meaninglessness?
This crisis of meaning is definitely the most common critique of any post-work theory.
I mean, it's a valid fear.
It is, but Qwen3.6-Plus offers a firm philosophical rebuttal to it.
Okay, what does it say?
It argues that tying human purpose inherently to wage labor is a very recent, culturally constructed illusion.
A recent illusion.
Yes. The AI states that true meaning actually emerges from 4 distinct pillars. Contribution, growth, relationships, and service.
Contribution, growth, relationships, service.
Exactly. In this new world, the concept of work doesn't vanish. It evolves into what it calls voluntary engagement.
Voluntary engagement, meaning we're still building things, still contributing, but the threat of starvation is no longer the motivating factor.
Precisely. The AI lists highly specific averages for this voluntary engagement.
Like what?
It says people will teach purely for the love of sharing knowledge. They will spend their time physically restoring damaged ecosystems and wetlands.
That sounds like hard work.
It is, but it's meaningful. They will organize local historical archives, participate in massive citizen science projects, and dive deeply into philosophy.
So education changes too.
Entirely. Education ceases to be credential-driven, where you go to university just to get a piece of paper that proves you're a viable corporate employee, and becomes a lifelong, curiosity-driven pursuit.
Okay, I am going to play devil's advocate and push back hard on this.
Go for it.
This relies entirely on a highly optimistic view of intrinsic motivation.
It does ask a lot of human nature.
Right. It assumes that deep down, we all want to be noble scholars and environmental stewards. But let's look at human neurobiology and our current behavioral baselines.
Okay.
Are we really all going to restore wetlands and read philosophy? Or is human nature going to default to endless binge watching and virtual reality?
Ah, the dopamine trap.
Exactly. Without the external structure of a 9-to-5 job, won't a massive portion of the population just default to the path of least resistance?
Yeah.
We're talking about a future where AI can generate hyper-realistic, personalized, virtual reality perfectly calibrated to hit our dopamine receptors.
Oh, that's a terrifying thought.
Why would I go outside and physically shovel mud to restore a wetland when I can plug into a VR matrix that makes me feel like a god?
It is a highly debated sociological risk for sure. But Qwen3.6-Plus's counterargument revolves around the concept of bandwidth restoration.
Bandwidth restoration?
Yeah. The AI argues that the reason people default to passive consumption and binge watching today is because their cognitive and physical bandwidth is entirely depleted by the current system.
Oh, so we just veg out because we're tired.
Exactly. When you are burned out, your brain craves low-friction dopamine. But when that exhaustion is removed permanently, your neurobiological baseline resets.
So you're saying that if you feed a starved person, they will initially gorge on junk food, but eventually their body will crave actual nutrition.
Yes, that's exactly the analogy. The intrinsic human desire to impact the physical world, to be recognized by a community, and to solve complex problems naturally reasserts itself when the nervous system is no longer suppressed by chronic stress.
That's a very hopeful view of humanity.
It is. Furthermore, the AI points out that humans won't be doing this alone. We will be partnering with these super-intelligent systems to tackle grand existential challenges.
Like climate restoration and space exploration.
Exactly. Imagine a global community of amateur astronomers using an AI network to map distant exoplanets.
Oh, that would be incredible.
Or local citizens partnering with an environmental AI to design a completely new, sustainable ecosystem for their river basin.
So meaning isn't assigned top-down by an employer anymore.
Right. It is authored by the individual, shaped by the tangible needs of the community, and sustained by the tools that make massive world-altering projects accessible to the average person.
We aren't losing work. We are gaining agency.
That's the core message.
But we are gaining agency only if we survive the transition. And getting there is the hard part, right?
Very hard.
Because Qwen3.6-Plus actually drops a very sobering caveat at the end of its blueprint. It warns that this future is not an inevitable trajectory.
It's not guaranteed at all.
Just because the technology gets smarter does not mean society automatically gets better. To bridge the terrifying gap between our current precarious reality and this post-labor renaissance, the responsibility falls squarely on the creators of the technology.
And this final section of the response reads like a manifesto for the tech industry.
It really does.
It states plainly that technology alone cannot engineer cultural readiness. You can build the most brilliant AI system in the world, an oracle capable of solving cold fusion and automating global logistics, but that is only half the job.
What's the other half?
The arguably harder half is narrative, education, and public stewardship.
Which is a direct contradiction of the dominant Silicon Valley ethos.
Absolutely.
For the last 20 years, the operating principle has been move fast and break things. Disrupt the industry, launch the beta, capture the market share, and then let the sociologists and the politicians clean up the wreckage a decade later.
Right. Deal with the fallout later.
But Qwen 3.6 Plus is demanding the exact opposite. It demands epistemic humility.
Which is rare in tech.
Extremely. It says developers must actively step outside the tech bubble and engage with historians, philosophers, and literary scholars to understand how human societies actually adapt to massive structural shifts in labor.
It requires a highly holistic approach to deployment.
Yeah.
It isn't enough to release an agentic model that displaces 10 million supply chain workers and shrug, saying, well, the market will adjust.
Learn to code, right?
Exactly. The AI says tech leaders must invest in public communication. They need to fund accessible education about what the AI can and cannot do.
And support transitional programs.
Yes, programs that actually help displaced workers pivot away from panic and toward the passion-driven pursuits we discussed.
And crucially, it mentions designing the distribution mechanisms. Because if the AI generates immense economic abundance, but the legal and corporate structures allow that abundance to pool in the bank accounts of 5 tech billionaires, the entire blueprint collapses.
It just becomes high-tech feudalism.
Exactly, tech feudalism.
This raises an important question, and the AI uses a phrase that serves as the linchpin for this entire transition. Ignorance breeds resistance. Clarity breeds collaboration.
Ignorance breeds resistance.
Right now, the public narrative around AI is completely dominated by fear.
Totally. Fear of job loss, fear of irrelevance, fear of rogue algorithms taking over the world.
If tech leaders can articulate a historically informed, humanistic vision of post-work flourishing, they disarm that panic.
They have to show people that the goal isn't human obsolescence. It is a human renaissance.
Yes.
Because if people believe the technology is being built deliberately to free them rather than to discard them, they stop resisting the transition and start actually participating in building the new society.
It's all about the framing.
It's the difference between feeling like a tidal wave is about to crush you and realizing you're being handed a surfboard.
That's a perfect way to look at it.
But the engineers building the board have to teach us how to ride the wave.
Absolutely. Qwen3.6-Plus concludes its analysis by actually bringing us back to the beginning.
Back to the 19th century.
Yes. It states that those 19th century novels of manners didn't celebrate laziness.
Right.
They celebrated the refinement of human potential when survival anxiety recedes. AI is simply offering us the mathematical and physical capability to take that historically rare privilege and make it the universal baseline.
It's democratizing privilege.
Exactly. Its final explicit statement is, the machines that learn to do our work are not here to replace us. They are here to return us to ourselves.
Return us to ourselves.
Wow.
That implies that under the current system of relentless labor, we are fundamentally alienated from who we truly are.
We are.
We're operating as reduced, compressed versions of ourselves.
We have spent the last century acting as biological machines, trying to compete with mechanical and silicon machines.
And we will definitively lose that competition.
We will. The AI is telling us to stop competing on the axis of labor and output and start expanding on the axis of depth, creativity, and care.
So, to synthesize the immense amount of ground we have covered today in this deep dive.
We covered a lot.
We really did. We started by looking backward, recognizing that true leisure has always been the privilege of the few, built on the hidden labor of the many.
The clockwork.
Right, the clockwork. Then we explored how the cyber-physical integration of advanced AI models, like Qwen3.6-Plus, has the potential to sever that historical tether, acting as the ultimate engine of production and basically eradicating the chronic time poverty that damages our neurobiology.
Draining the water so we can build the boat.
Exactly. We navigated the shift from a culture of monetized side hustles to a world of unmonetized, participatory creativity facilitated by AI acting as a silent technical collaborator.
The community theater example.
Yeah. Then we diagnosed the structural fragmentation of modern life, the Slack pings, the commuting, and envisioned the macroeconomic pivot from an economy of attention to an economy of affection, centered on the revaluation of caregiving.
Which is such a massive shift in how we value human time.
It really is. We also confronted the crisis of meaning, redefining purpose not through job titles, but through voluntary engagement, bandwidth restoration, and partnering with technology to solve existential challenges.
Rather than just escaping into VR.
Right. And finally, we acknowledge the heavy burden on the developers of these systems. The transition requires a rejection of move fast and break things, demanding instead a commitment to interdisciplinary collaboration, equitable distribution, and profound public stewardship.
It demands a new kind of responsibility from the tech industry.
Ignorance breeds resistance. Clarity breeds collaboration. It is a roadmap for the engineers and for all of us preparing for the shift. The work ends so the living can begin.
Beautifully said.
Which brings me to the final thought for today's deep dive. A concept I want you, the listener, to actively consider as you go back into your day.
Something to chew on.
Yeah, perhaps as you sit in traffic on your commute, or as you look at your crowded, color-coded calendar for the week. We have spent an hour discussing society on a macroeconomic scale. But let's make the thought experiment deeply personal.
Okay.
If the necessity of wage labor vanished tomorrow, if the AI systems successfully integrated, the abundance was equitably distributed, and your physical and economic survival was unconditionally guaranteed by the algorithm, what is the very first thing you would do with your Wednesday morning? Who would you finally become if you no longer had to be your job title?